Tonight, Channel 8's Amy Jensen has a story you'll see only on 8.
This is Eric Harris trying to sell a gun to an undercover cop.
Is that another one, or is that it? I see it.
That didn't go well.
I heard on the radio, go, go.
Stop right here.
I had a pepper ball gun in my left hand. We started running north on Harvard.
As a 73-year-old reserve deputy, Robert Bates was glad to be a part of the sting. Eric Harris was a 43-year-old felon with a long criminal record. Once Harris was brought to the ground, Bates jumped in to subdue him, and then it all turned into a disaster.
Now.
I feel very bad about it. It's been a very disruptive thing in my life. I feel sorry for his son, his ex-wife, and family. It bothers me.
Bates meant to use his taser, but instead he grabbed his handgun and fired what would be a fatal shot into Harris's armpit. Soon after, on the police body cam, you can hear Bates saying,
Oh, I shot him. I'm sorry.
They tried to make this into a racial situation. I'm not the least bit racial.
The trial was just as controversial. Critics said Bates was a wealthy businessman with connections who had no business carrying a badge and a gun. Supporters, including one former juror, said Bates deserved leniency. But the judge still handed down the maximum sentence, 4 years for killing an unarmed man.
I don't know, what kind of purpose did it do to put me in prison? I mean, it's the law, but, I was rather surprised, that I ended up in prison.
He spent 47 days in the Tulsa County Jail.
I was not allowed out. I got out a couple of times a week for a shower, usually late at night.
He also spent 1 year, 4 months, and 11 days in special lockup with the Department of Corrections.
And went immediately into lockdown in a protective custody situation where you're locked up 23 hours a day, supposedly. But if it's too hot, if it's too cold, you're going to stay there 24 hours a day. You want a shot of the dog?
Finally, with a record of good behavior, Bates was free. In all, he served about 1.5 years behind bars for the shooting death of Harris.
Do you think that you served enough time?
I think I served more than enough time. It's very difficult to be locked up for long periods of time. Come on.
Bates has now finished his 9 months of probation.
Quite a year, to say the least, with threats and people trying to run my wife and I off the road, trying to record conversations.
Now 77, out of prison and living in Florida as a convicted felon.
I now understand how the inmates, when they get out of prison and look for a job, they can't get one. They told me, nope, we can't use you.
He spends his time walking his dog.
Come on, Pearl. Here we go.
While also helping some prisoners and their families financially. And he's working on a few projects in hopes of bringing reform to prisons.
Oh, it was quite an experience. I'm writing a book in the meantime, which will be out after the first of the year, and explaining some of the situations that I saw.
Bates is no longer behind bars, but it's a stretch to call him a free man.
People recognize me, they make comments and so forth.
The day that ended Eric Harris's life essentially wrecked what's left of his. And he knows it left the Harris family with pain and hatred for him that will never go away.
Bad situation all the way around. I mean, I think, I don't know how it's, it shouldn't have happened.
Bates says it may never happen, but he hopes to someday meet with the Harris family to share their pain and let them see his. Amy Jensen, Tulsa's Channel 8.